Welcome back to Zarathustra's Journey, the podcast where we break down Nietzsche's masterpiece one chapter at a time. Today, we're diving into The Voluntary Beggar.
And this chapter starts with Zarathustra in a really interesting headspace. He's just left his encounter with the ugliest man, and the text says he feels chilled and lonesome.
Yes, profoundly so. It says much coldness and lonesomeness came over his spirit, so that even his limbs became colder thereby. It's a physical reaction to a spiritual state.
That encounter really took a lot out of him, but as he's walking, something begins to change, doesn't it?
It does. He's wandering through meadows and over rocky terrain, and suddenly he starts to feel warmer, more heartier again.
And he doesn't know why at first. He asks himself, "What hath happened unto me?" He just feels this warm, living presence nearby.
He describes it as feeling less alone, as if unconscious companions and brethren are roving around him, their warm breath touching his soul.
It's a very primal, almost animalistic feeling of comfort. So what are these mysterious companions?
He looks around, and behold, on a small hill, there's a herd of cows.
Cows? That's not what I was expecting. The source of this profound spiritual warmth is a bunch of cattle?
Exactly. Nietzsche is being very deliberate here. It's their simple, warm, physical proximity, and even their smell that has warmed his heart and spirit.
But the scene gets even stranger. The cows aren't just standing there. They seem to be listening to someone.
They are. They're all gathered around, heads towards a central point, completely engrossed. Zarathustra hears a human voice speaking from the middle of the herd.
Okay, so now we have a man talking to cows, and Zarathustra's first instinct is that something is wrong?
Yes, he immediately fears the man has been hurt and that the cows are gathered out of some sort of bovine pity. So he rushes up and shoos them away to get to the man.
But he was mistaken. The man is perfectly fine.
Perfectly fine. The text describes him as a peaceable man and preacher on the mount, out of whose eyes kindness itself preached. He was just having a chat with the animals.
A preacher on the mount is a pretty significant title. What does this man, this preacher, want?
He tells Zarathustra he's seeking the same thing Zarathustra is, happiness on earth.
And he thinks the cows have the answer? I love this.
He's certain of it. He complains that Zarathustra interrupted him right when the cows were about to give him their answer, after he'd been talking to them all morning.
So what is the great secret to happiness that we can only learn from cows?
The preacher gives him the key. He says we must learn one thing from them: ruminating.
Ruminating? As in chewing the cud? How does that translate to human happiness?
It's both literal and metaphorical. He says, except we be converted and become as kine, we shall in no wise enter into the kingdom of heaven.
He's subverting a famous biblical line. Instead of becoming like little children, we must become like cows.
Precisely. He argues that even if you gained the whole world, it would profit you nothing if you haven't learned to ruminate.
Because without it, you can't get rid of your great affliction. What is this affliction?
He gives it a name: disgust. He says everyone's heart, mouth, and eyes are full of it. He even accuses Zarathustra of having it.
So the modern condition is a pervasive sense of disgust, and the cure is this slow, contemplative process of ruminating, to chew on our experiences, not just swallow them whole.
That's the idea. But then the preacher takes a proper look at Zarathustra, and his whole demeanor changes.
He has a moment of recognition, right?
A massive one. He springs up, frightens, and exclaims, "Who is this with whom I talk?"
And he answers his own question. He sees Zarathustra not as a man full of disgust, but as the opposite.
Yes, this is the man without disgust. This is Zarathustra himself, the surmounter of the great disgust.
The preacher is completely overcome. The text says he kisses Zarathustra's hands like a precious gift has fallen from heaven. The cows are just looking on, wondering what's happening.
It's a total reversal. The teacher has become the disciple in an instant. But Zarathustra gently pushes back against this adoration.
He doesn't want the worship. And then Zarathustra recognizes him in turn.
He does. He identifies him as the voluntary beggar, a man who once cast away great riches.
Tell us more about this beggar. He was rich, but became ashamed of it.
Yes, ashamed of his wealth and of the wealthy class. So he fled to the poorest of the poor to give them not just his money, but his abundance and his heart.
He wanted to achieve a kind of purity through absolute charity. How did that work out for him?
It was a complete failure. The beggar confirms it, but they received me not. The poor rejected him.
So his act of radical giving was thrown back in his face.
Exactly. And that's why he says he finally went to the animals, to the cows.
Zarathustra's analysis of this is fascinating. He doesn't just offer sympathy, he offers an insight.
He does. He interrupts the beggar to say, "Then learnest thou how much harder it is to give properly than to take properly."
And he calls it an art. Bestowing well is an art, the last, subtlest master art of kindness.
This is such a key Nietzschean point. Giving is not a simple transaction. It's a complex, skillful act that can easily go wrong.
The beggar agrees, saying it's especially hard nowadays. He seems to think society has changed in a way that makes giving impossible.
He believes so. He launches into this speech about how everything low has become rebellious and exclusive and haughty.
He talks about a great, evil, long, slow mob and slave insurrection. He's describing a rise in resentment from the masses.
Yes, and this resentment poisons the act of giving. Any benevolence or petty giving from the rich is met with provocation and hostility.
So the very people he tried to help are now the source of his frustration.
He says it's no longer true that the poor are blessed. That old wisdom is dead. For him, the kingdom of heaven is with the kine, with the cows.
Because they're free from this human drama of envy and resentment. They just exist.
Zarathustra then poses a tempting question. He asks, and why is it not with the rich?
He's testing him, trying to see if he's just traded one form of disgust for another.
And the beggar says Zarathustra already knows the answer. It was his disgust with the rich that drove him to the poor in the first place.
Then he really unloads on the rich, doesn't he?
He does. He calls them culprits of riches, a rabble that stinketh to heaven. He sees them as a gilded, falsified populace.
He even attacks their lineage, saying their fathers were pickpockets or carrion crows or rag pickers. It's a very visceral attack.
Absolutely. His conclusion is that there's no moral high ground. It's populace above, populace below. The distinction between poor and rich became meaningless to him.
And that's the core of this flight. He fled from all of humanity, from this entire corrupt system, until he found the only beings he could stomach, the cows.
And all through this bitter, angry rant, Zarathustra is just watching him with a smile and silently shaking his head.
He's not buying the anger. He sees something else underneath it.
He sees the man's true nature. He tells him, "Thou doest violence to thyself, thou preacher on the mount, when thou usest such severe words."
He's saying this isn't you. This rage is a mask. For such severity, neither thy mouth nor thine eye have been given thee.
He even says the man's stomach can't handle such rage. Thou art not a butcher, he says. It's a diagnosis of his soul.
So what does Zarathustra see him as, if not a butcher?
He sees him as a plant eater and a root man, someone who grinds corn and loves honey.
A gentle soul who prefers simple, sweet, natural things.
And this diagnosis completely changes the beggar's mood. His heart is lightened. He feels truly seen.
He agrees enthusiastically. He says he loves honey and corn and things that require a long time, a day's work and a mouth's work for gentle idlers.
Which, of course, brings us full circle back to the cows.
Right. He says the cows are the masters of this lifestyle. They have devised ruminating and lying in the sun.
And crucially, they also abstain from all heavy thoughts, which inflate the heart. They are free from the burden of resentment and disgust.
It's a beautiful, simple philosophy. But Zarathustra has something more to offer.
He does. He offers an upgrade. He says, well, thou shouldst also see mine animals, mine eagle and my serpent.
He's inviting him into his own world, to his cave.
Exactly. He invites him to be his guest for the night and to talk to mine animals of the happiness of animals.
That's a very generous offer of companionship, moving beyond the cows to the eagle and serpent. Pride and wisdom.
But Zarathustra can't stay. He says, a cry of distress calleth me hastily away. He has to go.
But he leaves the invitation open and even offers him some honey.
ice-cold, golden calm honey.
A perfect gift for the man who loves honey. He tells him to say goodbye to his warmest friends and preceptors, the cows.
And here, the beggar makes a slight misstep in his enthusiasm.
He does. He gets a bit carried away and says, "One accepted, whom I hold still dearer. Thou thyself art good, O Zarathustra, and better even than a cow."
And Zarathustra immediately shuts that down. He can't stand flattery.
He calls him an evil flatterer and asks, "Why dost thou spoil me with such praise and flattery, honey?"
He sees that kind of praise as a poison, a form of weakness and dependency that he wants no part of.
So he cries, "Away, away from me," and actually waves his stick at the beggar.
But it's not a truly angry gesture, is it? The beggar ran nimbly away. It feels more like a playful if firm dismissal.
It's a final lesson. Don't worship me. Don't replace your obsession with the cows with an obsession with me. Stand on your own 2 feet.
It's a tough love approach to fostering independence. He gives him the diagnosis, the invitation, and then the push to go and live it.
And that concludes the tale of the voluntary beggar, a man who fled the disgust of the human world for the simple wisdom of the cows, only to find a new path pointed out by Zarathustra.